Hello and welcome to the North American Gamebird Association presentation called Gamebird Spotlight. Today I'm joined by Bill MacFarlane, Rob Sexton, our Executive Director of the North American Gamebird Association, who are off-site, and we're discussing and the event that they are at. So Rob, you are at the Animal Agricultural Alliance event. And why don't you tell me, first of all, what is the Animal Agricultural Alliance?
So the Animal Agricultural Alliance is, I would call it an advocacy organization that represents, all the major livestock interests across the country and try to provide a coordinated response toward defending, agriculture, food supply, that sort of thing. And North American Gamebird Association has been a financial supporter of the Animal Ag Alliance for many years because we support the important work that they do.
And from what I can understand, they hold, just like we hold an annual conference, they hold an annual conference for their stakeholders. So that's what you're at this year, correct?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, it was Bill's idea that we come. It's called the Stakeholder Summit, and Bill gave me a call and asked if I thought it'd be a good idea for us to come, and so here we are.
Well, the executive director of the AAA was, what was her name?
Kay Johnson.
Kay Johnson, and
Right.
She spoke to our NAGA convention a few years back, and then Casey, who is another AA one on staff, she came and spoke to us 2 years ago. So, but no one from our organization that I know of ever come to this. So back probably 2 months ago, I asked Rob if he wanted to go, and he said yes. So we went together.
Great idea. In fact, I got a video admission and can watch these seminars that they have, which I think is a great idea. Not everybody can go like you are. And so to be able to watch it on my own time and be able to get that information as well, I think is valuable. So what kind of information have you been getting? What kind of seminars?
Well, it's been pretty varied, but it really started off with a bang. The first speaker, he was from North Carolina. He's had various different jobs in the ag sector over the years. He's with the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce now. But he was talking about people's perceptions of their food supply versus the realities of it, right? And so, you're being told that your food's full of additives that are bad for you, right? You see a lot of that in the media, and or your cattle have hormones pumped into the meat, right, or the dairy or this kind of thing, and versus the actual information on the health benefits of the way we raise food. In fact, he showed about, I don't know, what do you think, Bill? Maybe 15 examples of media headlines that said the food supply is broken, when in reality, American food supply is functioning at a higher efficiency now than it ever has.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yes, I've seen those kind of commercials that there's, hormones in chickens that are making women become fertile sooner, et cetera, et cetera. And that's wonderful. And so in that seminar, they gave you examples. Did they also give you ways to combat this kind of thought?
Yeah, I think one of the real messages that's come through is that you need to be active talking about these things,
Mm-hmm.
Using your social media channels, you need to be talking about these various things about, how good our livestock industry functions. And that would of course spill over into the game bird industry as well. Like how are
Mm-hmm.
raised, is it healthy? Are they treated well? If you're not talking about them, you're sort of vacating the stage and allowing other people to define the way we function, and that'll allow perceptions to take hold.
Very good. What other seminars have you seen? Any other thoughts?
So what the second seminar after that one, or second speaker talked about, really showed polling um, on how people's perceptions are, and so that it really validated the first speaker, because he was talking about what we see in the media. She was talking about actual research that shows what people think.
Mm-hmm.
And no surprise, the younger the demographic, the more they're swayed by some of the stuff that we were talking about, because they're getting their information, using their phone
from TikTok.
Yes,
And a lot of what they're getting is misinformation, but they believe it, and they don't trust the animal producers necessarily, and they don't trust the government. They don't really. I don't think they necessarily want more regulations, but they don't really trust the regulations that are in place.
Mm-hmm.
But
We've talked about that in the past, family-wise, that people don't know where their food comes from. So we made a point to take our kids and go to farms and go to places.
right.
It's hard to do for everybody, but good ideas. Yes.
so throughout the conference, everybody has an app on their phones. They take polls, and you can participate in these various polls. And so one of the questions was,
Is that why I kept getting those emails? Okay.
yeah, so it's asking, do you think people trust the government in terms of our food supply? And the younger the demographic, the less trust there is. And so that includes the FDA and the CDC. And you can see how people got here. The last 3 years, there have been a lot of challenging information about the government. And so that erosion of trust has spilled over. And so they don't trust that our food supply is safe. They don't trust that there are regulations that assure humane treatment of animals. And so that makes them open to somebody's TikTok video telling them whatever they want to.
And the Gen Z generation, the indications are that 24% of Gen Zs believe that food is safe, and that the regulation is being, the government regulation was what we need. 24% of people trust it.
That's not very much.
No. And that means they don't trust that, like that our operations are being run humanely, because they don't think anybody's watching. And so the last presentation we just watched was specifically about the Gen Z demographic and how to talk to them. And there was a panel of, I think it was 3 women.
Yes.
And basically they were saying, you got to get active on your social media. And of course, the main media that demographic uses to educate themselves and others is TikTok. And so a lot of us are not comfortable with little videos, but I guess the point they were making, and it's hard to argue this, you're either on their playing field where they're listening, or you're just not, and you're ceding the stage to other people with other agendas.
Right.
Wow. So you have one more day of seminars?
Half a day, and there are speakers that probably have what I would consider the more traditional. What I kind of expected was talking about how to deal with animal rights people, and there's the agenda tomorrow is a little more what I thought I was going to get, but tomorrow it's factory fundraisers, how animal rights groups exploit animals and donors. That's one of the speakers topics tomorrow. And another one is growing trust and protecting your future, safeguarding the future, and then practical solutions responding to animal rights act extremism in 2023. So that's a little more. But some of the we got today, it may not be what I expected, but the realization is it's pretty important information. And one of the things we talked about was corporate social responsibility, CS. I didn't say all that. They just said the acronym, and everyone does, except for Rob and me. And it's corporate social responsibility. And what they talked about is for these big companies like McDonald's or Starbucks, they have a responsibility to provide safe products, that we're going to sell safe food, but also we have to be aware. Those big companies have to be aware of their decision making and how it affects the world. Is it a green decision or not? Then they had another thing they called ESG, which is environmental, social justice, and governance, which I took was sort of a competitor to CSR, Rob. And they're the same thing, only said differently. But a lot of these big corporations, and there was somebody there that spoke from Starbucks talked to our convention about how their company has 36,000 stores and how they're going to use their interaction with people to further that animal agriculture is okay.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a big public relations deal in a lot of ways.
Right.
So a lot of the people in the audience were public relation people or lawyers, or who else was there?
Like lobbyists, maybe?
But there were virtually hardly any producers that I saw at all. This is a pretty high level conference with what they talked about. I was just trying to keep up with most of it. Both Rob and I were just treading water as fast as we could to get a handle on it, but we did get an idea of what they were doing. And the people that spoke, one after another, were articulate and intelligent and didn't seem to be concerned at all that speaking to 300 people, nobody seemed nervous. I would think myself, I would be nervous, but they were really top level speakers. It was pretty incredible.
Well, awesome. I'm glad that you're there. I'm glad you're representing the North American Gamebird Association. Are the other attendees aware that you're representing? Are they aware of who you are or not?
Probably not. It takes a little while when you go to any conference to develop any sort of rapport with people that you're with. So we're now around our table. We've been having some conversations.
They actually have interesting things. They have a website that is it gives you the agenda. It gives you everything you need. When there's questions being asked, you can submit them via text. It shows you what the questions are without people having to get up. We have the polls. Another thing is that you could, if you saw somebody you knew their name, you could hit on it and say, "Could you meet outside in the aisleway? I want to speak to you." But we didn't know anybody. But then there's even another one. Are you alone for dinner? I think it was like some kind of dating app or something. But
wow.
It wasn't. But are you alone for dinner? Are you looking for someone to go to dinner with? And I read through them, and there were people that were here, didn't know anybody, and they went out to dinner with 3 or 4 people. So they didn't have to have dinner alone. They've got lots of ways to meet people. My way was more just talk to people that were around our table.
Right.
I wasn't
right. You're not a high-tech dater. Okay.
I think to go back to the CSR ESG thing, a lot of folks probably in our age demographics, we roll our eyes about that stuff. That's all the woke stuff, that sort of thing. But younger people tend to want to know that whoever they're doing business with is a good ethical actor. And so it is applicable to us in ways that you might not think about, right? So it might be on your producer website, the things you do to use, your products as efficiently as you possibly can to eliminate. In fact, one of the presentations was about producing more product with less input cost, right? Which of course anybody would want to do anyway to keep costs down.
Right.
But also, like, I started thinking about questions I get when I deal with hunting outfitters. What happens to all the birds that are shot? Well, what happens to, if you go to a big game ranch, what happens to the deer that get killed? People want to know that it's not just all being wasted. And I think so for us, we can get out in front of those things by telling that story as part of our, maybe on our websites or, in our social media feeds. And all that does is assure people that you basically are, one of the good guys, which I think is really what I took from all of that discussion.
Right.
Well, wonderful. Bill, I'm looking forward to the article you're going to write about this for the magazine. That's a little arm twisting. But I think that's fascinating. I'm glad that you're there. I'm glad that you're representing us and looking forward to whatever you bring back to share with the rest of us. Rob, any final words?
No, I think we'll be ready to put something in the magazine to talk about our trip, and I think they're a good partner uh, for North American Gamebird Association, and we look forward to interacting with them going forward. And probably about once every 5 years, we ought to have them come back to our convention and talk to people again.
We did a live stream I did one with Hannah, dealing with vetting the employees that you hire, because all you need is one person that slides through your process and videos something and takes it out of context, and you are presented to the rest of the world as a bad actor, as you say, Rob. So they've been with us right along, and we're so appreciative of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you both for being with me today.
Thank you.
And I will be taking you all out, and we'll close up. And thank you to our visitors for being with us today. Thank you for watching. We are the North American Gamebird Association. You can learn more about it on NorthAmericanGamebird.com.